My name is Jason J. Rock Houston, and you're listening to Destroyer 40. Our special guest tonight is original House of Lords drummer Ken Mary. How you doing tonight, Ken?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Now, I'm doing great, and once again, I'd like to thank you for being part of our Destroyer 40 special here. And one of the main reasons I want to interview you, Ken, like a lot of people know, as I said at the top of the interview, you're the original drummer from the band House of Lords, which was a great band that was signed to Simmons Records back in the day, which was Gene Simmons' label. And so I wanted to get some stories what it's like to work with Gene and talk a little bit about House of Lords. But before we get into that, I was wondering if you could share with us, because I was reading on your Facebook page that actually the first concert you ever went to was a Kiss concert. So could you share with us how you first became a Kiss fan?
Sure. I would say when I was in elementary school, I had an older friend and he was really into Kiss. And so I went over to his house and heard Kiss Alive, heard Destroyer and some other albums. And so just became a huge Kiss fan. I mean, I probably, like any other male in the United States, between the ages of probably like 9 and 25 at that point. I think they were just probably the biggest band. Well, they were the biggest band in the world at that time. So I don't think it was anything unique in terms of, you know, them being a band that I was interested in, because there were so many other millions of people interested in them as well. I think it was interesting in terms of, you know, I had always pictured myself, you know, being in Kiss, or, you know, when you're a kid, you have this vision in your head of what they're like, and you're thinking, oh, they're so cool, and I want to meet them someday. And when I was a little kid, I remember thinking, like, I wonder what Gene Simmons is doing right now.
Yeah. And now let me ask you, Ken, when you first got into Kiss, I mean, did you see a picture of a band? Because let's admit it, the band's look and image and the whole makeup thing was as big a part of the band as anything. But my question was, like, did you see a picture of Kiss, or did you pick up a record? Was there a song you heard? You know, talk a little bit about that.
Well, it was both. I mean, I heard the records and I saw the photos, and then, you know, my mom let me go to the concert with a friend of mine that was older. You know, which I'm still kind of surprised by that even today. Like, we were really young. We went to a Kiss concert, and you know, this is at the point where they're I mean, it's not. I think when they first started, they might have been attracting like a heavier crowd, and then as their career went on, you know, they started attracting, you know, younger and younger fans as well. So you know, I went to the show, and it was a great concert. And when I saw that, I mean, I played drums from the time I was, let's see, I don't know, around 10 or 11.
Oh wow.
So it wasn't like it led me into playing drums. I really started playing drums when I was 5 years old, banging pencils and on pots and pans, and, you know, using paintbrushes or whatever I could to make drum sounds with. So when I saw Kiss play, I was like, I want to do that. You know, that's what I want to do when I grow up. So,
and that first Kiss show you saw, do you remember what tour that was, or around what year we're talking here?
I think it's around 79 or 80.
Oh wow.
And maybe it might have been 78. I'm not sure. It's somewhere around that area, and it really was, you know, a great stage show with all the original members. So I guess it's probably 78 then, or something like that.
Yeah.
But you know, really a great show, and I definitely remember the risers moving and all the different things that were going on, and it was, you know, for being young and seeing that kind of thing, you just go like, you know, wow, this is incredible, and you know, you just want to grow up and do something like that.
Yeah, and being a guy who's played the drums, you know, since the young age of 5, I was curious, when you first got into Kiss, did you naturally, being a drummer, gravitate towards Peter Criss, or was there another member of it was your favorite member of the band?
That's really interesting. I mean, I didn't really have a favorite member.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as the band, I mean, I just loved the whole band.
I hear you.
Image, I loved the music. I told Gene when I met him, I said, you probably owe me about $1 million, because I have like every poster, every record, went to your shows. You know, it was kind of funny when I met him, because I was, you know, kind of giving him a hard time about that. He never offered to reimburse me, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And now talk about, like, you told me one of the first things you ever heard was Kiss Alive. Now that was when the band really first started to really take off, because if you go back when they put out those first three Kiss albums, they're kind of like a little really raw, and but the records weren't selling until they put out Alive, because once the live album came out, people finally got to see, wait a minute, there's something live going on with this band. Listen to this, wow. And people started going to a show, and then once people started going to a show, they started seeing, wow, these guys are putting on the ultimate rock show,
And it was. I mean, it was definitely the ultimate rock show. And that's the thing, when you're a kid and you even listen to the record, and you see, you're hearing these explosions, and then you're seeing it in the photos, and you go to the show, and there's confetti and mirror balls and just all these crazy things going on. I mean, how could you not? What's not to love, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I imagine seeing Peter Chris's, drum set levitate. Being a kid that's into the drums, that had to just be the coolest thing for you back in the day.
Absolutely. I mean, it was awesome. Just everything when you're a kid. I mean, and even as you get older, I mean, it's just they have a very exciting show, and there's so many enjoyable components about it. And if you like the music as well, which I was a huge fan of the music too, which a lot of musicians make fun of me for. They're like, oh, you like Kiss, because I guess there are some musical snobs that don't like their music or whatever. But they had some great songs. Let's face it, they had some amazing material, and they had tons of hits, and they've had a career that spanned over 4 years, I think. So. What else can you say? Yeah,
I mean, and you worked with the man, Gene Simmons yourself, and the thing is, one thing I always tell people that I always loved about Kiss, I mean, there's any number of things. I mean, like we're saying, the look, the image, that put on the ultimate rock show, but then they always had the goods as far as the songs. I mean, you can say what you want, that they're not, most technical musicians, but they've got the songs. They're great songwriters. I mean, even, talking a little bit about Destroyer, like we're going to do tonight. I mean, that's the thing. When I first heard that album, Destroyer, I thought, man, they've really, stepped the songwriting up a notch. And if you look at the fact that, some of those songs are still in the Kiss set list today, that tells you, how powerful those songs still are.
Oh, absolutely. And I think a lot of that, or not a lot of it, but some of it has to do with Bob Ezrin.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, he's like the fifth Kiss member on that album. I mean, if you look at the songwriting credits, he's credited with... playing a role in the songwriting on every single track there.
Yep, and he is a genius in my opinion. Ezrin is he also worked. I toured with Alice Cooper, which you might not know. But I toured with him for 3 years, and Bob Ezrin worked on a bunch of Alice's records as well, and he's really, when you listen to what he did on albums in that era, particularly, and even now, I mean, the guy is really an amazing producer as well. I do a lot of music production myself now, so that's something that I appreciate a lot more these days.
And being the Kiss fan that I know you are, Ken, and having worked with Gene himself, this may not be a secret to you, but were you aware of the song "God of Thunder" was originally a Paul Stanley written tune, even though many people think of it as Gene Simmons' ultimate song?
No, I wasn't. I mean, that's not something I was aware of.
Because here's a funny story about that. If you get a chance to if you got the Kiss box set, or you probably find it on YouTube, on the box set they put out this demo version of "God of Thunder," I guess from back in the day when they first recorded it, with Paul Stanley doing the vocal, because he wrote the tune, and it was actually Bob Ezrin who told him, Paul, this sounds more like a Gene song, and we're going to have him do the vocal. And what's funny about that to me is Gene is now known as the God of Thunder. That, if you look at the fact that that's a Paul Stanley song, that is who Gene Simmons became.
Well, I think in terms of the band, obviously they're both such integral parts of the band, and they're both great singers. I mean, I think Paul Stanley is one of the greatest rock vocalists of all time. I mean, really an incredible vocalist, in my opinion. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's fair. That's fair to say. And now let me ask you, as a Kiss fan you are, Ken. After hearing Alive, and when a follow-up album came out, Destroyer, a lot of fans back in the day was a bit of a controversy, because they thought, this sounds a little too commercial, a little more polished. But what did you think about it when you heard it for the first time?
Well, I'm trying to remember. Is that I think that's the album that had Beth on it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, Beth, Detroit Rock City, Flamin' Youth.
Detroit Rock City, everybody loved. I mean, I think when you're a kid and you're into Kiss, well, I actually heard the albums after they had already been released.
Yeah, yeah.
So for me, it was just playing catch-up to some degree. I never even heard the first 3 albums, I guess, the ones that you referred to that were out before Alive. I mean, I have since then, but never really got into them. I really, the albums that I first started listening to were Alive and Destroyer, and then I think was Rock and Roll over after that?
Yeah, Rock and Roll over came immediately after Destroyer. That was the next album.
Okay, so those 3 were like the first albums that I was really listening to and getting into the music. But I do remember Beth being played on the radio, and I was a rocker, so my first reaction to Beth when I heard it, because I thought on the radio, I thought the guy said, we have a new song by Kiss called Death. Death by, I thought he said Death.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds cool, and then they played Beth, and I was like, what is this junk?
Yeah.
I can't say I was a huge fan of that particular. Now you go back and you listen to it, and as you've gotten older, you listen to that song and you understand, especially being a touring musician, what that means. When you're away and you're trying to get back home, but you're not going to be able to make it because you're out there touring or you're rehearsing or whatever. I will say that the song actually means something to me now that it didn't when I was a kid. I guess what I'm saying is I appreciate the song a lot more now than I did then. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and
as far as the polished sound.
Yeah.
When you're a kid, you don't really notice. All you notice, you either like the songs or you don't.
Yeah.
I thought all the songs were great.
It's funny you say that about Beth, because I'll tell you a funny story, Ken, in doing research for this. I've read interviews and stuff where Gene and Paul both said that, like, when they were recording Beth, for this album, the both of them were against, they like, no, Kiss doesn't do ballads. Now, if you think about it, that was the first ballad Kiss had ever put out. When they were recording the song, I guess Paul and Gene were like making faces and kind of laughing at Peter doing his vocal, and Ezrin had to kind of kick the 2 guys out of the studio, and so Peter could get the vocal down. And they were so against this track, being on the album, but Ezrin did his magic, and he did some tweaks to the lyrics and stuff, and made it what it became all these years later. And it was actually Bill Coyne and Ezrin that really pushed for that song to end up on the album.
Well, it doesn't surprise me. It certainly was a massively successful song. I mean, that's one of their biggest hits ever. I think I just saw it used in a commercial recently too. I don't remember which one, but there was some major commercial that used it, and the string arrangement that Ezrin did on that is really incredible. I mean, it's just incredible string work. It's a beautiful, beautiful song. Like I said, now I appreciate it.
Oh yeah.
Like this wasn't rocking the house, so to speak. So
I hear you.
I kind of looked at it like, it's a little weird. A funny story I can tell you about Gene when I was in House of Lords, and I think he probably took that experience with him because in House of Lords he wanted us to cover a song, and we demoed it up. But he goes, I know the song is going to be a huge hit. I can't tell you who wrote it. I have the demo. I want you guys to do it, and we didn't know what he was talking about, but he's Gene Simmons.
Yeah.
So you obviously listen to him, and you go like, okay. So, anyways, the song he brought into us was "Love Can Build a Bridge" by the Judds. Do you remember that song?
No, I'll have to look that one up. Wow. Okay.
Anyways, House of Lords, we did a demo of it somewhere. I don't know where that recording is, but Gene talked us into basically going, look, I know this is going to be a #1 hit. You guys, to record this, and we did. I don't remember why it wasn't included on the record, but I will tell you this: he was absolutely right. That went on to be like a massive #1 hit for the Judds. So
wow.
I don't know how he got it early. I don't know if they had decided not to release it. I don't know exactly what the particulars were in the song, but I just think it's kind of interesting that he learned from the experience of Beth that, sometimes you can take a band and you can go a little bit outside what they're used to doing and have something very successful with it.
Yeah. Now, talking a little bit about Beth, because, I mean, unless you're Ringo Starr, typically, the drummers stay behind the stool. So, as a guy who's into the drums yourself, Ken, hearing Beth and finding out it was sung by the drummer and seeing the band live and, seeing when he has a little moment on stage, comes out and throws a flower in the audience and, does his lead vocal thing. What was that like for you, seeing a drummer actually get the chance to kind of, have his little moment in during the show?
Well, I mean, if you think about the 70s, that wasn't really something necessarily unique. You had the drummer in Queen that sang songs.
Yeah, that's true.
The guy, Don Henley,
oh, that's true, yeah.
sang songs, which, I've met him as well. But, I would say it's just, I didn't really
think of it.
I didn't think it was that unusual, I guess.
Uh-huh. And you mentioned earlier the fact that I did know you played previously with Alice Cooper. Now, that was prior to joining up with House of Lords, right?
Yeah, that was right before joining House of Lords. Yeah.
And then the band at the time also featured Kane Roberts and Kip Winger prior to Winger, correct?
Yep. Yeah, I toured with Kip before he was Kip. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I hear you. And you guys actually were
still Kip Winger at the time, but not
the band.
Yeah. Now Kip Winger at the time. So yeah.
And because you guys were actually part of when Alice was really starting to make a bit of a comeback. He hadn't played in about 3 or 4 years. So what was that like for you? Have the opportunity to play with a guy like Alice?
It was actually an incredible experience, and if I look back on my career, it really was what I had the most fun doing, and I'll tell you why in a second.
Okay.
But, actually, I think Alice had been pretty much out of the scene for about 7 or 8 years in terms of, just having anything viable that was happening. And I know that he had, by the time that we toured with him, I think he had been clean for something like 6 or 7 years. I don't think he had ever done a show where he was straight. So this was like a whole new thing for him. And it was a whole new thing, for us. We were all quite young at the time, and it was quite an experience. The biggest place I had played prior to touring with Alice was probably about 3,500 people.
Oh, wow.
And that was the biggest place I had played. I was used to playing, clubs at small theaters and things like that. And I had done some other touring, so I was very much prepared for the Alice tour. But, I went from playing places, like small theaters and clubs, to all of a sudden we were playing, sold out coliseums with, 16 to 20,000 people. It was definitely a different mindset, and it was a blast. I mean, it was the most fun. I think the reason I was saying it was the most fun is because, it wasn't. I didn't have to worry about the record, how the record was doing at Billboard.
Yeah.
The manager was ripping us off, how much the tour bus was costing, how many road crew we had to pay. I didn't have to think about any of those things. All I had to think about was getting on stage, playing. We had great road crew. We had great sound people. A guy named Robert Scoville who lives in Scottsdale near me, and we're still friends to this day. Most of those people that were on that tour became lifelong friends.
Wow.
So it was a great experience. I actually met my wife on the second Alice tour. I have a tremendous amount to be thankful for those Alice tours. Those were really fun times, and it definitely was good preparation for, what was going to come next.
And then, I love the fact, what's so great about Alice's story. I mean, I've heard from people like you that he's I've never had the pleasure of meeting the man myself, but they've told me that he's just one of the super nicest guys in the world. And I know, like you're saying, before you guys got the band back together, he hadn't toured in about 6 or 7 years, and it's great to see a guy like that have that kind of a comeback, and he's still doing it today. 60 something.
I think a case could be made. One thing that was kind of, I will tell you, that's a little irritating. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame had rules set up, and if you look at like the Grateful Dead, or you look at I think Black Sabbath, they have like 150 people that were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And the rule was, if you toured and recorded with the artist, then you would be included in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And they changed that, I want to say, around 2003 or 4 or something. And you look at that, and it would be irritating to me, like if I was Eric Singer or Bruce Kulick, they were in KISS longer than the original members, and, they're not included in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is completely ludicrous.
Oh, yeah.
And then I look at, Alice's situation, and the case could be made, that without those tours, without the tours, those comeback tours, which were very successful, you know, I will say I think that band was a very important band
Oh,
in
sure.
his career. Like, I think the case could be made without that band. Maybe that comeback doesn't happen. Maybe it's not successful. You know, maybe the continuation doesn't happen. So I just thought it would be appropriate that that band would be included in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And so I figured I'll go ahead and use this platform of your.
Oh yeah, hey.
About that, but,
Hey, I'll back you up on that. I'll back you up on Ken. I mean, I'll go to the point that, like you're saying, that comeback band he had, you know, which included, of course, you and Kane Roberts and Kip Winger. I mean, Alice would, you know, years later, he'd play with, you know, other guys in Winger, Paul Taylor and Reb Beach. And if you look at everybody in that band, you know, after, you know, they left Alice's band, they went on to, you know, bigger and better things. So, you know, that Alice Cooper band at the time, it was a great launching pad for, you know, all the musicians who were working with Alice at the time.
And it's just funny, like I said, those are still, you know, lifelong friends. You know, I talk to Kane like every week.
In fact, I hear he's working on a new solo album. I'm kind of excited to, you know, hear that when it comes out.
Yeah, well, I'm supposed to be playing on a couple songs. We'll see if that actually happens.
And, you know, getting back to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, you know, I will, you know, to Gene and Paul's credits, I will say, you know, when they finally got inducted, a lot of the controversy surrounding that was the fact that Gene and Paul wanted to have every single member of it had ever been in KISS, including like you know, Eric Carr and Mark St. John, who had passed away, you know, including Vinnie Vincent. They wanted all 8 guys, you know, including the current lineup, included, and the whole thing was like, no, we're just going to include the original 4, and they're like, well, and they said, well, we're not going to perform for the original 4, we want to perform for the current lineup. Well, we're not going to allow that. But yet, you look what they did with Metallica. Like you said, okay, they took Robert Trujillo, who only played on one album, Jason Newsted, and Cliff Burton, but they included all the members of the band. But look what they did with Deep Purple. They only included certain members. And
yeah, I know. Well, the wacky thing is, it's like, look, you guys set up your own rules, and then you're just going around changing them. Like, it seems like kind of randomly. So
I don't
know. I just think the way they handled the whole thing's a mess. I think they really slighted a lot of players that, you know, really, you know, truly should be included. And, you know, the whole thing of, you know, hey, just the original guys matter. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, you know, look at the, you know, Bruce Kulick, I think, was in KISS for 12 years.
Oh, yeah.
And sold millions and millions of records. So he recorded and did countless tours. You know, really? Like, you're not going to include him? Like,
and then you take a band like, you know, no disrespect, but you take a band like the Grateful Dead, and they include all 27 members of the Grateful Dead, plus guys that weren't even in the band but wrote with the band, you know, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, they included guys that wrote on songs, and they did that with Black Sabbath as well, that just wrote on material, and you're just going, you know, okay, this is, I just think they're a little messed up, and they need to reevaluate what, you know, whatever it is they're doing over there. You know, they need to figure it out, because I think when fans are looking at it, like, you know, how legitimate is this, you know?
Yeah. And then, like they're saying, like, for example, last year, okay, Cheap Trick and Deep Purple finally get in, you know, after being snubbed for several years, especially Deep Purple. And you think, okay, well, they're finally getting in, but I think it has more to do with they're running out of bands to, you know, to induct.
Well, I don't know. I think Deep Purple, if you look at, you know, their musical history, and I'm a big fan of music history, so,
well,
I mean, you know, they had some enormous hits.
Well, yeah.
Certainly had a big impact on the original, what I would call like the original metal scene.
Oh, no argument. I mean, no argument there. That's my point. They should have been in years ago, and I think the only reason they're in now is because, okay, you know, after snubbing them for so many years, like, okay, I think, you know, it's time to induct them. Yeah, about time, you know. I mean, when you look, not just Ritchie Blackmore, but I mean, when people say that, you know, keyboards don't belong in rock, I say, okay, you listen to anything John Lord did, and then you tell me keyboards suck, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
And now, talking a little bit more about now, after Alice Cooper, I guess the next big thing you did was House of Lords. So that would be around, what, 1990?
I think it was 88. It was the last tour I did with Alice was in 88. And then we did our first album, which I think was released in 88. And the album so fast. I mean, it was, I recorded the drums in 2 days. And the whole album was recorded and mixed in 30 days, which is really even unusual for that time. I mean, it was a very, very quick album, and I feel like the album does really stand up to the test of time.
It really does. I mean, of all the House of Lords things, I'll tell you this. I think my two favorite House of Lords albums would be that debut one, and then I think it was the third one, Sahara.
Yeah, Sahara was actually the second album. That's my favorite by far. I think Sahara was, sort of I think that was the pinnacle of what that band was, and I think the reason it was a little different from the first album, we were still kind of, trying to figure everything out, and we did a great job. Like, I think there's some amazing songs on that first album, but by the time the second album rolled around, you had guys that had been touring together, we were friends, we hung out together, we wrote together, we rehearsed together, we demoed all the songs up in our demo studio, so, we really had become a band at that point, and on the first album, it's not that we weren't a band, but, we just had to move so quickly.
You're finding your way.
Had to happen on a very tight time schedule, and there wasn't a lot of time to really get to know everybody, and that would happen later. So that's why I think Sahara. I just think it's a more cohesive record. I think the production value of it's better. I think the playing on it's a little better. I just think it's an overall like that. That's my favorite album, Max. That's one of the favorite albums I've ever played on. Really, so many great songs on that album too. So. Anyways,
and oh wow, that's cool. And can you tell me now, being somebody that's been involved with House of Lords from the debut album up until the time you left, I guess, was House of Lords, was it kind of previously the Jafria band, and you guys kind of morphed into House of Lords? Did they tell you to change your name, or did you guys just kind of form an all new band once you all got together?
Well, I think it definitely had elements of Jafria. I think Chuck, Greg, and Lanny had all been, if I'm not mistaken, in Jafria together. I really didn't know much about Jafria at all. I mean, I just know that hit song that they had, and was it 84 or 85 or something? So I was not like a Jafria fan.
No.
Per se. I mean, I knew the song. I didn't really know the guys that were in the band or anything like that. So when I joined and when James Christian joined, it really was. I think that the look. The whole outlook on everything was, this was a new band, and I think Gene Simmons looked at, his involvement. He looked at it, that, this is a whole new band.
Yeah, because I remember the time, seeing ads like in Circus Magazine. That's dating me too. But I remember the time like seeing ads for like Greg Jafria's new band, and they were really pushing at the time. Now, can you share with us, Ken, what was the point when you got involved with House of Lords? How did they hook up with you? Did you go down on audition? Did you get a recommendation?
I did go down an audition, actually, and I think they had seen me play at Long Beach Arena with Alice Cooper.
Oh,
and the bass player, Chuck, told me later, he goes, we saw you playing, and we were like, hey, we got to get this drummer. And so I came and auditioned, and there was a bunch of other people that auditioned as well, some famous people that I won't mention that actually went on to better bands than House of Lords. But I always make a joke. I guess I could say it. Matt Storm auditioned as well, and I think like half the band wanted him and half the band wanted me, and I ended up being in it, and he ended up being in Guns N' Roses. I think I'd swap that. I'd swap with him there.
and correct me if I'm wrong, but if memory serves me, didn't Doug Aldrich, who'd go on to play in Whitesnake and Dio, didn't he play some of the guitar tracks on Sahara?
He did. I think he played the bulk of those guitar tracks. I know that Impellitteri played on some stuff. I know Michael Guy played on some stuff.
Yeah.
I think there were several other guitar players. Rick Nielsen played on tracks. I'm trying to remember who else. I mean, I'd have to look at the.
I hear you.
But I'd say probably the bulk of the work, I believe, was Doug.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course, it's no secret that Gene Simmons and Greg Jafria go back to the Angel days when they were both signed to the same label. But do you remember at what point Gene got involved with House of Lords?
Well, I'll just tell you a funny story real quick. When you talk about Angel, Angel was sort of like the opposite of Kiss. They were all dressed in white, and it was a completely different kind of, I guess, band. It was more keyboard oriented.
Yeah.
But I do remember being a kid and seeing an Angel poster, and I did have an Angel poster in my room.
Wow.
So, which is kind of funny because I ended up working obviously with Greg
And let me ask you, excuse me for interrupting you, but when you went down to the audition, talking about having been an Angel fan and having an Angel poster in your room, did you realize that was a keyboard player from Angel when you're going down there to audition?
I had no idea.
Wow.
I had no idea because all you heard about was Jafria.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know Jafria.
Yeah.
And Angel, I don't think was, I think they were, moderately successful. I don't think they were hugely successful, obviously, like Kiss or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so it was just a poster I had, and
wow.
I thought it was a really cool poster.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much the end of it. I knew one song that they did. I think it was called The Tower. And that was pretty much my extent of the knowledge that I had of Angel. So yeah, I had no idea that
wow.
Greg was a keyboard player. I mean, it's just funny that I used to have posters of these guys on my wall.
Yeah.
Working with them, which was I thought that was kind of funny.
Because I've heard Gene talk in interviews over the years where talking about the time when he worked with House of Lords was when the band was first coming together. I guess initially they were going to call it Jafria, but it was Gene actually said, come on, Greg, why don't you come up with a more rockin' name for your band? Jafria sounds like a fruit or something.
He's absolutely right. I mean, he did. I believe he actually came up with the name House of Lords.
Yeah.
And I remember somebody telling me, yeah, Gene has a name for the band.
I think I even heard something to the effect that...
And I was thinking to myself, well, I'm sure he probably came up with something cool. And then I heard the name House of Lords. I was like, okay, that is a cool name.
And I think I've even heard things over years, so much since he did come up with the name to the point that he had it trademarked and licensed under his name.
Well, I think he owned half the trademark.
Yeah.
And we owned the rest or something like that. I mean, it really didn't matter.
Yeah.
He's going to take off with it, which, I mean, I could get into a whole technical thing now.
I hear you.
What's that?
I hear you. I mean, it's just great, now you have great stories to tell from that time,
Well, there's a lot of great stories, and I remember, Gene used to, in terms of the musical abilities in House of Lords, I think he did really respect the musicianship.
Uh-huh.
He would come down, he was the executive producer, so he would show up in the studio, and I remember I was doing some drum takes, and, I'd stop, and I'd be like, okay, I pushed the flow here, I want to redo it. And Gene was like, well, why are you doing that? Because he's thinking, it doesn't really make a difference whether it's first take, third take, fifth take. He actually said that to me. It doesn't make any difference. And I was like, well, I want it to be perfect. And he's like, well, yeah, but by the time everything else is on it, it's not going to make that much of a difference. In hindsight, he's actually 100% correct. It really doesn't make a difference. It's really something that I was doing, for myself, but it was costing a lot of money, obviously, in studio time to do that. So, he would come down, he'd show up, and he'd come into the studio and listen to something, with some playing on it that was pretty rocking playing, and he would just go like, "Yep, you guys know what you're doing," and he'd walk out. He really didn't have a lot of input in terms of the actual production of those albums. I think he trusted us, and I think he respected our musical abilities a great deal, and just kind of felt comfortable that we knew what we were doing.
And again, do you remember what was the point, or how did you guys, hook up with him to, I mean, obviously you eventually signed with his label, so was it a matter of him reaching out to you guys saying, you're the first band I want to sign to my label?
I think he reached out to, I believe it was Greg. I think Greg kind of started putting together the deal with Gene. I don't know who approached who.
Yeah, okay.
I do know that, like you said, those guys go all the way back to Angel. So I do know that relationship had everything to do with, them working together on this. And I do know that, it was, Gene's involvement was pretty intense. I mean, I know he really did the best he could to make the band successful. I remember him coming down to a photo shoot and adjusting, this was for the first album, he was there, and he was, actually adjusting our clothing and how we were positioned in the photo shoot and everything. And I was laughing to myself even back then. I was going, when I was a kid, I was wondering, I wonder what Gene Simmons is doing right now. And I was thinking to myself, well, I know what he's doing right now. He's helping us out at this photo shoot. So it was kind of a cool thought even back then. I was like, wow, Gene Simmons is working with us. And he really, I found out years later, I did an interview with a guy in Canada, and he goes, did you know that Gene Simmons was doing promotion on MTV up in Canada. I think it's called Much Music or something.
Yeah, I remember that back in the day. Yeah.
You know, Gene, he said, "Did you know Gene was doing interviews for Much Music about house when your albums came out?" And I said, "No, I had no idea he was doing that." But I think he really did care.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think he really I think he loved the music, and I think he really. I think he was a great guy to work with. You know, a lot of people, have said a lot of different things about Gene in the press. You know, I've seen some people, say not nice things, and I've seen other people, that say nice things. My experience with him was great. I thought he was a very intelligent man. I kind of wish I would have listened to a few more things he would have told me.
Yeah.
I think, he made some statements to me that I look back and go like, yeah, I mean, he's a very intelligent man, and I thought he was a very honest businessman. The thing I liked about Gene was when you got into a deal with Gene, it didn't change.
Yeah.
He didn't ever try to change it.
Yeah.
You knew that he was going to get a good chunk because he's Gene Simmons.
Of course, yeah.
But you know what? If you sign the deal, then you sign the deal. I have a hard time with a lot of my friends that have signed deals with somebody and then they complain later after there's they become successful or whatever, and this guy took this much too much money, and this producer took this, and this guy took this, and did you sign the contract? Did you read the contract? Did you know what you were signing?
Yeah.
Sometimes people get things pulled over their eyes, but it's like if you're a reasonable person and you read through the contract and you know what the percentage splits are, and then something happens and a certain percentage goes to that person, I think you have no right to look at them and think they don't deserve that. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I mean, kind of like if you even look at the situation with Kiss. There's some people that think, when they had the reunion, Ace and Peter should have got what Paul and Gene are getting, but these people forget that Gene and Paul are the ones that have been there for 40 years. Ace and Peter have come in and out of the band, and Gene and Paul are the ones that write and sing the bulk of the material. So naturally, they're going to be making more money, and you can't say they're this guy is a jerk because he's making more money than these other guys that haven't been in the band for 40 years, So,
sure. Well, I think the other thing about that is that, and you may have already said it, but, they kept the band going through some very tough times. I mean, if you remember the early 80s before Lick It Up, it was a tough time for Kiss. I mean, you can go look at some of the interviews and some of the different things they were doing, just to stay alive at that point.
Oh, believe me, I'm a huge Kiss fan. I know. I know all that.
I've always admired about the band is the fact that
kept going.
They weren't going to go quiet. They were going to fight no matter what. Like no matter what was going on, they were going to fight their way through it, and they did. They fought through it, and they won. And they've been around. I mean, has there been any band longer, with the exception of the Rolling Stones? I don't know.
I really don't. I mean, I really don't think so. And, that's part of the reason we're talking about Kiss. 40 years down the line, that's why they've been able to be, successful. That's why, I laugh when people say, oh, Kiss are just, they're just in it for the money. But let's be honest, who isn't? And, like I said, Kiss is so much more than just a rock band. I mean, I laugh sometimes when I hear this, but I love the fact that Gene and Paul are even getting into that age in life where they're like, in a few more years we're going to hang up our boots and, there's going to be somebody else replace us. Kiss will go on. I mean, a thing I love about, like Dimebag Darrell was ultimate Kiss fan. He was, they sent him a Kiss casket. I mean, as a Kiss fan, how cool is that? You're with Kiss forever. You're buried under the ground in a Kiss.
I mean, personally, I wouldn't use a Kiss casket, but.
No, I'm just saying. Yeah.
But I thought that was nice, and I do know that Gene does a lot of behind the scenes charity work too, and my experience. All I can go is based on my experience.
Oh, of course.
My experience with him, I really enjoyed working with him. I thought he was really a great guy. I think, like I said, we were young and full of spit and vinegar. I think I wish we would have listened to him a little more on a few things because he did have a great deal of experience. He knew what he was talking about.
Oh yeah.
A lot of times when you're young and you're arrogant, you think you know better, and I don't think there was a whole lot of that going on. Like I think generally speaking, we did take his advice, but I do think that he certainly knows the business and had a lot of great things that he taught us, things that still stick with me today.
Oh yeah, I mean, and I have a lot of respect for a man. Just outside his talent as a musician and a songwriter and that. But I mean, I read things like last year where this dying Kiss fan asked his last wish. He was part of a Make-A-Wish Foundation. His last wish before he died was to meet Gene Simmons, and Gene took time out of his busy schedule to go meet this kid. He made a point to go take him some Kiss records and just hang out with the guy for a whole entire day. And he didn't have to do that, but you don't read stuff about when people like that take time to do stuff like that.
I agree with that. And I think honestly, when I was working with him, I'll be honest. I mean, I think his motivation was money. I mean, really, in terms of and it's no secret. Gene's a businessman. He'll say it, and I do think that having kids and you watch, when you watch like his television show, I get the feeling like he, I don't want to say grew up a little too, but I think as time has gone on, I think he seems to me like to have really kind of evolved into someone that is a little different. When I worked with him, I thought he was great. And you look at the charity work and all that he does now, and I think he's even moving that bar higher, so to speak. I think he's doing some great work.
Yeah, and now let me ask you, Ken, you must see this, because I see this even as a Kiss fan, huge Kiss fan that I am, over the years. Any band, anything that's even got the slightest little connection to Kiss, fans really get into it. I mean, I know back in the day when the debut House of Lords album came out, I read in Circus Magazine, debut album from House of Lords on Simmons Records. I mean, I went out and bought it without even hearing anything, just because it was the band signed to Gene's label and I was a Kiss fan. And you get all these guys that like played with Ace, for example, over years. They put out a solo album. All the Kiss fans will go and buy it just because it's got some kind of a Kiss connection, if you know what I mean.
Well, I will say the fan base for Kiss, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. I think they have like such an incredible fan base, fans that have stuck with them over the years, fans that really are into what they're doing. You just don't see that with a lot of bands. I mean, I do think, like you said, there's something special that happened, and it's beyond just the image. And there's some great music that I think really has carried through the years and proven that it's stood the test of time. And I think that ultimately, if you look at why people go see a band, generally speaking, it's the music. As much as the Kiss show is important, I think the music has also really played an important part, and I'm sure there's going to be musician friends of mine that are going to argue about this, but I think the reality is those songs really mean something to a lot of people, and I think it's kind of nice that they don't care, like if you listen to Kiss, they don't care what other musicians think. They care about what the fans think.
Oh yeah,
and that's exactly what they should be thinking about.
I mean,
like other musicians don't buy albums and don't come to see concerts, and I think if you're a musician and you're in a band, that's one of the first things that maybe one of the first words of wisdom that Gene told us. Look, you're not here to impress musicians. You're here to impress fans. You're not selling to musicians.
Yeah, and let me ask you, Ken, because I was reading on your Facebook page too that and it's just boggles the mind to think that 28 years have now passed since that debut House of Lords album. Can you believe that much time has passed?
Honestly, it's a little weird.
Yeah.
I just kind of go, because everything just went so fast, like a blink of an eye. I mean, to answer that, the short answer is no. I can't believe it's been that long.
And I'm with you as far as those. I guess that's got to be my top two House of Lords album, the debut and Sahara. Now, on Sahara, you guys did the great cover of "Can't Find My Way Home." Talk a little bit about how did you guys decide to cover that?
I don't remember. It's funny because I talked about this in an interview previously, and I just can't remember whose idea it was to do that song. But I do know that as a band, we got together and we did a demo of it on our 12-track Akai recorder in our rehearsal hall, and that demo is what made it onto the album. Like, we tried to go and recapture that magic in the big studio, and we had like a 32-track digital machine and an SSL, and Andy Johns was there.
Oh, yeah.
We tried to go and recapture that magic, and we just couldn't capture the magic that we did on that 12-track demo. So we took the 12-track demo, we dumped it to the 32-track digital, and we redid the drums and bass and mixed that, and that was our biggest hit single, actually.
Yeah, and I think another big part of the success behind House of Lords was, I mean, you guys had the mighty Chuck Wright on bass. How do you feel you and him locked in as a rhythm section?
Well, I'll tell you, Chuck is one of my bass players, or excuse me, one of my bass players.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite bass players in the world. He's an amazing bassist. We used to lock in so well together. I think Chuck, honestly, is a bit of a mind reader. Like, we used to do this exercise where I would come up with random fills and I would throw them into the middle of a groove and see if he could, do something that was going to match. And without fail, I mean, that guy would just completely, like, I didn't even know what I was going to play, and he would play along with it, like, completely. So Chuck is amazing. There's another friend of mine that I've done some work with, Dave Elson from Megadeth. He's another one of my favorite bass players. Like, those two guys are like my two favorite bass players. And Chuck, touring with him, it was incredible. Great guy, great player. Can't say enough great things about him.
Wow. And now, how many albums did you play on with House of Lords? Because and then I wanted to ask, do you remember what year it was when you stopped working with the band? I want to talk a little bit about how do you feel about James Christian carrying on with different members?
Well, I left in I think it was 91. It might have been 92 when I left. My reasons for leaving were just a lot of different things. There was some weird stuff going on with management. I just didn't feel like it was something I wanted to continue with, and it was kind of interesting that I chose to leave at that time, because right afterwards the whole grunge thing
and
it kind of killed that music anyways. You know what I mean? Like, it just kind of put all of that stuff on the back burner. As far as what's going on with House of Lords now, I mean, I told James, when he carried on, I just said, look, call it something else. Call it, just name it some other name, because it's, he's the only guy.
Yeah.
So, how do I feel about it? I kind of feel like it, in some small way, kind of tarnishes the coolness of what we did, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of some of it, but I will say, I think, most fans are like me in the sense that when you think of House of Lords, you think of those first two albums, especially the debut, like even 28 years after the fact, that's a great debut album. That's something to be, you can hold your hat on. That's something to be very proud of. I don't think, I think more people are going to remember, that debut album than, whatever was the last House of Lords thing James Christian put out. And there's no disrespect to him or the guys in the band, because I've heard some of that's pretty decent stuff. But, just being honest here for a minute.
Well, and that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, for me personally, when he told me he was going to do that, I just said, look, I really would like you to not use the name House of Lords, because that's something that we all invested in. It's something that we all built. And I do think there was an element of, we did something, I agree with you. I think we kind of did something special that has a little special place in music history. And I would like that to be kind of like left alone. If it's just going to be you, and you want to call it a solo record, or you want to call it some other band or whatever, I think that's totally fine. I just don't appreciate that it's being called House of Lords, because it really, it's one guy. So,
And let me,
you want to call it House of a Lord, like, I would be okay with that. But I told him before he even did the first album, calling it House of Lords, I said, I think you should call it something else. I told the other guys that, but the bottom line was that there's a weird legal thing that happened, and the label ended up owning the name somehow. It's a long, convoluted story, but.
And did he ever ask, when he wanted to do House of Lords again, did he ever reach out to you or any of the other guys to see if you might be interested in reestablishing House of Lords?
That's a whole
another story.
I honestly, if you would have, I think at the time, we had done one record called Power of the Myth.
Okay.
And if you go, excuse me for just 1 second. If you go listen to that record, I think the vocals were really not good on that album. I mean, it's just
your opinion, yeah.
Well, no, it's not my opinion. I mean, a lot of people have said it. Like, what happened on this record, and what happened on that record? I think there's a couple things. I think the direction was a little odd. There was nobody really producing it. And then on the flip side, I listen to those vocals that are on there, and I think it really pulled the album in like a bad place. So, I think had he asked me to do something, I'm not positive I would have done it anyways without hearing something. Like I would have had to, he would have had to play me something and go like, hey, this is what we're going to be doing. But no, he didn't ask, and that's another thing that I think is a little, when you've invested part of yourself building something and then somebody just kind of takes off with it, it's, is it appropriate? Whatever.
I hear you.
Wish him luck. Hope it goes well, but it shouldn't have been called House of Lords is the bottom line for me.
Yeah, and part of the reason I asked that is because I've read over years since he's relaunched it that one of the main reasons, the original band wasn't involved was the fact that, Greg Jeffrey has made all this money in Las Vegas on this, computer chip or whatever he created that all the slot machines use, and so he's not really into music anymore. And I was just curious if there's any truth in that, or if you talked to Greg, because I know recently he did a Angel reunion, like the Las Vegas Awards.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so...
I do know that there was one point, and I think it was probably during The Power and the Myth, or somewhere around there, maybe prior to that Greg and I had actually talked, and I have a pretty massive recording studio. It has an SSL console, it has Pro Tools HD. It's really a nice room, and he was talking about actually flying down and doing the keyboards at my studio.
Wow.
So the conversation was being had. I don't know exactly what happened in terms of Greg, deciding, hey, I'm not going to do it, or I don't recall exactly what it was, but I do know that he was involved in early discussions of putting together, a version of House of Lords. So at one point, he was certainly going to be part of that.
Okay, now I got to ask, following your decision to leave the band, what did you do immediately after? I mean, were you still involved in music? Did you start producing other bands, as you said that you're into doing these days?
Well, I did a little of both. I started my own project, Soul Shock Remedy, which ended up getting released on a label called REX. And they had another band called Sixpence None the Richer, which I think went on to sell, multi-platinum status. But when our album came out, REX went bankrupt, I think, within probably 4 months of our album being released.
Oh, wow.
It kind of caused a big problem. We did make a little bit of a stink in Europe. We had like a 5K review in Kerrang! Magazine, which is sort of the Rolling Stone of Europe, more or less.
Yeah,
I do know that it sold okay over there. I won't say it sold well, but it was sort of like, for lack of a better term, it was more or less my solo project. So
and let me ask Let me ask, would you do you own the rights to that if you wanted to, re-release it or anything down the line? Would you be able to do that?
Yes, I actually would.
Oh, that'd be great.
Now, the only thing is I've gone back and listened to it, and when you go back and you listen to something and it really stands the test of time, perhaps like Sahara or an album like that, I go back and listen to Soul Shock Remedy and I go, well, it was a good snapshot of that particular
time period.
But would I want to go out and tour on that music now? Probably not.
Yeah, okay. And now, what are you doing musically? You these days? I mean, you mentioned you produce bands, but do you involved in writing any music of for yourself?
Well, I have. I'm actually doing an EP that I'm starting. It's called A Rush to Revolution. I don't know. I'm going to try to include all of my many friends that I've recorded with over the years. Just try and make it like a really, kind of cool musical statement of just stuff that I personally want to do. There's talk of some other things going on, but I don't want to announce anything yet.
Okay, I hear you.
But I also finished up the Monsters of Rock cruise.
I was going to ask about that because I seen that you appeared on that. Now, what capacity did you actually play with the band, or did they have a house band or something?
Well, I played with a band called Shark Island, which was the theme of the cruise was the Sunset Strip in L.A., and that was kind of the theme, and that's why bands like Quiet Riot and Shark Island and some of the different bands that were there due to their prominence on the Sunset Strip. And Shark Island was a band that really had some great songs. I mean, honestly, like when the guitarist Michael Guy, he was in House of Lords, as
Oh,
you
wow.
probably remember, and he was also in Shark Island for quite some time, and so he called me up and said, hey, do you want to come on this tour? And I was like, yeah, it sounds like fun, and it was. We really did have a great time. And one thing that I noticed about that band is when I went back and I had to learn the songs, and just like what I was saying about Soul Shock Remedy, you go back and listen to something and it doesn't really stand the test of time. With the Shark Island stuff, they had some really great songs that actually stand the test of time. So.
Oh yeah, well, Shark Island's one of those bands, like you said, many people know a name, but they probably couldn't tell you who was in the band or name a song. I mean, I remember a singer, Richard Black. He appeared on a record with Tracy Guns and Bobby Blotzer called Contraband.
Yep.
And then after that, he kind of disappeared from the scene. But let me ask, might that turn into like a Shark Island reunion or anything? And if so, is that something you might consider getting involved with?
I don't know. I mean, we'll see how everything goes. I mean, bands are kind of like they're kind of like family.
Yeah.
You don't know exactly what's going to happen. I know that the main thing, we just wanted to do that cruise, and if something happens beyond that, then we'll see. But
okay.
I say that I am doing my own EP, and I'm going to have a whole bunch of friends on that. Hopefully, some well-known friends. And in terms of answering your question, what have I done? I've just been producing tons of stuff. I also work with a band called Northern Light Orchestra that I produced.
Oh, wow.
It has all kinds of guitarists. Actually, Bruce Kulick played on it. Doug Aldrich played on it. A lot of Red Beach played on it.
Wow.
Vivian Campbell played on it. A lot of Chuck Wright played on it. Dave Olson played on it. Tons of different singers and players, and it's really quite an extensive project, and there's a lot of songs available on iTunes. So that's something that I'm working with as well.
I'm quite excited to hear about that.
Sorry?
I'm quite excited to hear about that. You have to keep me in touch, once gets time to release that.
Actually, it's already out. It's already out on iTunes.
Oh, okay.
We've been releasing albums with that for several years, so you can just look it up. It's called Northern Light Orchestra, and there's all kinds of great players on that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I heard about that. Okay, I'll have to check that out. I have heard something about Northern Light Exposure. I remember hearing about that. And now let me ask you, Ken, before I let you go, did you get a chance to, see a real rap band reunite on the cruise? What was that like?
I did, actually. I thought it was really good. You never quite know how those things are going to work out, and I thought they did a great job, and I thought they sounded great. And I did watch them for quite a while, actually, and sometimes I stood up behind the stage, which is really kind of a cool area, and you're able to look down and watch them perform, and I was actually pretty impressed. Yeah,
well, I hear they're coming back, in 2017, so we have that look forward to. Once again, Ken, I want to thank you so much for taking time to be part of our Destroyer 40 special here, and please, I urge you to, because I really enjoyed talking to you, and I can tell you got a lot of great stories to tell, so please keep my info, and anytime you have anything to promote, or maybe when your EP gets ready to drop, please let me know, and I'd love to help you promote that as well.
Thanks, Jason. You have a great evening.
Okay, take care, my friend. Bye-bye.